Coming up on Network Africa, Ebola cases continue to rise in Uganda as the Medical Association supports the medical workers' strike. President William Ruto of Kenya chairs his first cabinet meeting since elected into office. Plus, Ethiopia tells aid groups to avoid active military zones after an aid truck got destroyed earlier in the week. Hello and welcome to the program today. I'm Layo Olarinde. The World Health Organization says there have been 36 Ebola cases in Uganda, 18 confirmed and 18 probable cases since an outbreak was declared last week. It says 23 deaths had occurred in 3 districts of central Uganda, of which 5 have been confirmed. The WHO said this was the first Ebola outbreak in Uganda since 2012, caused by the Sudan strain of the disease, for which there are no licensed vaccines. On Monday, Uganda denied reports of a strike by medical staff at the Mundembe Hospital. The 34 trainee medical staff said they were refusing to work and accused the government of not providing them with appropriate safety kits. Meanwhile, the president of the Uganda Medical Association has expressed support for medical workers who have taken the industrial action, accusing the government of not creating a safe working environment for them to handle the ongoing Ebola outbreak. Dr. Sam Oledo, the president of the professional grouping of all medical workers in the country, says that while doctors are dedicated to keep offering care, they need to be safe first. We'll move to Kenya now, where the new president, William Ruto, has chaired his first cabinet meeting, attended by some ministers who openly opposed his presidential bid. The Tuesday meeting at the State House in Nairobi was attended by all outgoing ministers. Well, it comes as the new administration grapples with drought and security situations in the northern parts of the country. President Ruto is expected to name his new cabinet in the coming days and had also promised during the election campaigns a 50-50 gender representation among the ministers. A Kenyan lawyer who was on trial at the International Criminal Court has been found dead in his home in the capital, Nairobi. Well, the family of Paul Gicheru and the police confirmed his death. Mr. Gicheru was facing charges of witness interference at the ICC. He was accused of bribing witnesses that were to testify against William Ruto, who is now president, over Kenya's 2007 to 2008 post-election violence, in which more than 1,000 people were killed. However, he denied the allegations. The lawyer had surrendered himself to the court in November 2020, 5 years after the ICC issued an arrest warrant against him. Prosecutors said the allegations against him undermine the case Mr. Ruto faced at the court. Well, the Ethiopian government has warned aid organizations against operating in areas where the military is targeting Tigrayan rebels. Well, this is coming after the UN's World Food Programme said one of its lorries had been damaged by flying debris following an apparent drone strike on Sunday. The UN agency said the driver had sustained minor injuries and called on all sides to respect international humanitarian laws. Well, almost 2 years of war have created a major humanitarian crisis in northern Ethiopia. After a lull for several months, a resumption of intense fighting in recent weeks has undermined international efforts at peace talks. Well, Fatima Bio, the wife of Sierra Leone's President Julius Maada Bio, has said her husband holds a PhD degree In staging coups, therefore, nobody can overthrow him. Well, she was referring to the violent protests of August in opposition strongholds, which left 31 people killed, including 6 police officers. The president blamed the protests, which were generally about the high cost of living, on the opposition, alleging that they were part of a plot to overthrow him, leading to the dismissal of the top 3 in the army. Was speaking over the weekend at a fundraising event in US, Mrs. Bio accused unnamed people of wanting to overthrow her husband. According to her, her husband has a PhD in staging coups. And how can you remove someone who teaches people how to stage coup? Well, she made this known in a video shared on Facebook. Mrs. Bio was making a reference to the fact that her husband first came to power in April 1992 as part of a group of young military officers who overthrew the civilian government of Joseph Sediu Momo of the All People's Congress, the party he defeated at the polls in 2018 and whom he accused of being behind the August protest. Back here in Nigeria, the Armed Forces Command and Staff College, JAJI, is remembering 165 victims of Nigerian Air Force NAF C-130 plane that crashed on 26th of September 1992 in Ejigbo area of Lagos State. At an event to commemorate the fallen heroes in JAJI, families of the victims want the federal government to fulfill all the promises made to them after the demise of their loved ones. The commandant of the college, Air Vice Marshal Olurotimi Tuashe, in his memorial speech, says the price paid by the military officers will never be forgotten.
On September 26, 1992, a Nigerian Air Force plane C-130 carrying 165 military officers crashed in the Ejigbo area of Lagos State, killing all the occupants on board. The officers were students of the Armed Forces Command and Staff College, JAJI, and were on a study tour to Lagos when the incident occurred. The unfortunate incident brought to an abrupt end the lives of some promising officers with a very bright future. It's exactly 30 years after the incident, but the memory of the fallen heroes still lingers in the hearts of their colleagues and their families as the Armed Forces Command and Staff College commemorate their demise.
Our heartfelt condolences will continue to pour out to you, and we say to you today that you are not alone.
To afford the families of the victims a place to visit and remember their loved ones, a befitting cenotaph was erected inside the college.
And so, Lord, we lift up our heart unto you, praying for the family of departed souls.
At this year's Remembrance Day, prayers were offered for the repose of the souls of the fallen heroes.
May Almighty Allah, in His infinite mercy, have mercy on them, forgive them all their sin and shortcomings.
Senior military officers and families of the victims also lay wreaths in remembrance of the departed souls. Representatives of the families expressed their concerns.
We would really appreciate it if such promises will be kept, and then they should consider that promises, especially with the issue of pension that is contained in the terms and conditions of service.
For honoring us this way, and it has gone a great way in giving us a sense of belonging to us and our families and the children.
The price paid by the beloved officers and men will forever be remembered. The entire Armed Forces, Command and Staff College community still mourns the loss of these fine officers and men, and their demise will forever remain engraved in our hearts.
The persons on board the ill-fated military plane crash include 7 directing staff, 140 students of Senior Course 15, and 3 support staff of Armed Forces Command and Staff College, JAJI, who are returning from a tour of naval formations in Lagos as well as the aircraft crew and few other persons traveling from Lagos to Kaduna.
South Africa's former President Jacob Zuma is not ruling out a political comeback after he was forced to step down in 2018 amid a storm of corruption allegations. On Monday, he said he was approached by party members to take up the position of the national chairperson of the ruling ANC party ahead of its national conference in December. And according to a statement tweeted by his daughter Dudu Zuma Sambudla, he says he will not refuse such a call should they deem it necessary for him to serve the organization again at that level or any other level. The former president is accused of placing the interests of corrupt associates ahead of those of his country in a type of corruption known as state capture. However, Mr. Zuma has constantly denied any wrongdoing. He says the ANC party is facing serious organization challenges and threw his weight behind Cabinet Minister Nkosazana Dlamini Zuma to lead the party. The war in Ukraine has deepened Egypt's economic woes, sending the import-reliant nation's bill for wheat and oil soaring, and with it, the need for dollars. Or a loss of confidence in the weakening Egyptian pound and an exodus of local and overseas investors from short-term government paper have contributed to dollars running short.
Christine, a lad from Eastern Cairo, had been hoping to buy a small automatic car this year. But rules preventing importers trading in scarce dollars put paid to that, and she is having to get around on her bicycle instead. Unfortunately for those planning purchases like her, the new import rules brought in earlier this year to stem shrinking foreign currency reserves and shore up the pound resulted in shortages of goods, lifting inflation near 4-year highs.
Every time I save up some money for this, car prices jump higher than my savings. Now I don't have a car. I use the bicycle for transportation.
The car sector has been among the worst hit, but traders say the import crunch has affected everything from electrical components to textiles and spare parts.
With time passing and the delay in providing foreign currency, the shortage became severe because there is no stock to cover the demand. Importers cannot get their cargoes out of the ports and they can't answer to their commitments towards the foreign manufacturers.
In April to June, imports of consumer durables fell by 57% from the same quarter the year before. That's according to the most recent quarterly figures from the State Statistics Agency. Into the summer, some clothing retailers, unable to secure new seasonal stock, left winter collections on the shelves. Bankers say dollars have largely disappeared from the interbank market, and traders say that for most people, securing hard currency through a letter of credit to be able to import goods has become a long and frustrating task. Foreign currency reserves slipped to $33 billion in July from $41 billion in January, despite an influx of cash from Egypt's Gulf allies and the new import rules. With rising debt, Egypt has been negotiating for a new loan with the International Monetary Fund since March to help shore up its economy.
Still ahead on the program. Well, we'll go to Ethiopia, where Orthodox Ethiopians pray for peace as they mark the annual Meskel Festival. Please stay with us. Thank you for staying with us on the program. We continue in Egypt, where the Ministry of Antiquities have led renovations and has reopened the site of the ancient Virgin Mary. Take a look.
Egypt authorities have reopened the historic site of the Virgin Mary's Tree in Cairo's Mataria district, a spot where the Holy Family is believed to have passed during their journey to the country.
Tree of Virgin Mary is an ancient tree, a sycamore tree that dates back to more than 2,000 years ago, under which the Holy Family took refuge during the escape to Egypt. The tree had weakened in 1656, so Franciscan priests collected its branches and it sprouted again.
The project is part of an ongoing joint effort between the Ministry of Antiquities and local development groups to renovate various historic sites that are said to have witnessed the Holy Family's journey through to Egypt. According to a statement by the Antiquities Ministry, the renovation of Mary's Tree site includes building new ramps for people with disabilities and adding signs and brochures in Braille for visitors with visual impairments.
Mary's Tree was renovated starting 2019 as we built seating areas for visitors and wooden pillars to support the tree, as well as a wooden fence around it to protect it. Material is being used to protect the tree, to clean it from pests.
The project comes at a time where Egypt is looking to support its tourism sector following the COVID-19 pandemic and the war in Ukraine.
Museums and archaeological sites in Egypt are free to visitors today to mark the 200th anniversary of the deciphering of the Rosetta stone, which unlocked the secrets of ancient Egyptian hieroglyphics. Well, the stele is inscribed with 3 versions of a decree issued about 200 BC. One is in ancient Greek, which enabled the French linguist Jean-François Champollion to translate hieroglyphics for the first time. The Rosetta Stone had been found in Memphis in Egypt in 1799 by a French military officer, but was subsequently taken by British forces and shipped to England. It was then given to the British Museum, where it remains. Let's take you back to one of our leading stories for today. Kenya's new president chairing his first cabinet meeting. We have joining us from Nairobi, Abby Agina. Hello, Abby. Thank you for speaking to us. Talk to us about how the meeting, how did it go today?
Well, many thanks for having me on the show. It has been a long wait. Today, the president did have his first cabinet meeting with the old cabinet, because this afternoon he has also named a new cabinet. But back to the main issue. The earlier meeting that the president had with the various cabinet ministers, he was basically getting briefs from each of the ministries in regards to the status of affairs, where he was also taking reports from the different cabinet ministers. Well, this session did see a big focus on the security situation in the country, where we've had a couple of attacks, bandit attacks, where we've lost some police officers. The other area of focus, of course, was on combating the drought situation in the country, where Kenya is currently facing a severe drought in the northern side of the country. And so far, 23 counties which are affected have received relief food. This dominated part of the meeting that the president had earlier with the outgoing cabinet secretaries. Well, a lot of concern did come up, especially when it came to tackling the perennial issue that the country also has been facing. This is in regards to the high cost of food, which the president affirmed that he will be putting necessary steps and measures in place to ensure that the food situation is improved and more households are able to receive the relief food. So those were the key highlights from that earlier meeting with the cabinet ministers. But of course, he also pulled quick one on Kenyans by naming a brand new cabinet lineup, which has got the country talking.
So what is the country saying about that? Because we were expecting that the naming of the new cabinet will be later this week, but like you said, he pulled a fast one on the country. He promised during the election campaigns, a 50-50 gender representation among the ministers. Is that what has happened?
Well, to take that issue around the 50-50, he did mention that his government will have 50-50 share, and some have misconstructed the narrative, hoping that it would apply to cabinet. So far, we can indicate that he's been able to name at least 21 cabinet secretaries, and from this list, we can count close to 6 of them. Not close, actually, 6 of the cabinet secretaries are females, and the rest are males. So this goes a long way towards gender mainstreaming, even in cabinet. Of course, the previous regime, we also did see a similar number of cabinet secretaries who were female. But he also invited to cabinet some unknown names, which has also sparked a lot of excitement, as well as in equal measure, we've also seen some levels of people claiming that it was underwhelming, considering the caliber of cabinet secretaries who had served in the outgoing government. But it will be a wait and see, because he is also expected to make further appointments for the principal secretaries, as well as the assistant ministers, who will be likely to be a major focus for the country, which has been looking forward to this transition. And of course, many have said that the current cabinet that has been constituted is representing the face of Kenya, where he has picked different people from different backgrounds from the various communities across the country. So those were some of the observations that we can make from the cabinet naming today. But a lot of expectations indeed.
All right then, Abi Agina. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
We end the program in Ethiopia, where Orthodox Christians pray for peace as they mark the annual festival of the Meskel, a commemoration of the discovery of the true cross on which Jesus is believed to have been crucified.
The shadow of war hung over the Ethiopian Orthodox Church's celebration of the Meskel festival in the capital Addis Ababa on Tuesday, with high security, low turnout, and clergy preaching about the need for peace and forgiveness. The festival, which according to the Church's teachings commemorates the findings by the Roman Empress Saint Helena in the 4th century of the true cross on which Jesus was crucified, is a high point of Ethiopia's religious calendar. As they do year after year, hundreds of priests, musicians and singers clad in traditional white robes gathered on the vast expanse of Meskel Square in central Addis for a series of rituals culminating in the lighting of a giant bonfire. But while the pageantry was as mesmerizing as ever, the mood was darker than usual, with the war in the northern region of Tigray having recently flared up again after several months of relative quiet.
Truly speaking, this year, we Ethiopians are not celebrating the festival in full happiness, partly because, just like the mothers were crying under the cross, our mothers in the north are also crying. They are under suffering. This suffering is common for all of us. It's our own, of course, but there are external actors in it.
The war in Tigray, which broke out in November 2020 and has at various times spilled over into other regions, has killed thousands of people, displaced many more, and left an estimated 13 million people in desperate need of food aid.
On this day, my prayer for the new year is that God says enough, because He's the honor of peace, and He declared peace through His cross by denouncing hatred. I believe and I hope that we will come together and have a peaceful year as a result of his forgiveness.
The warring parties are Ethiopia's federal army, regional forces allied with it, and the Eritrean military against forces loyal to the Tigray People's Liberation Front, the party that controls Tigray's regional government. The central government and its allies accuse TPLF, which long dominated Ethiopia's ruling coalition, of seeking to reassert its dominance, while the TPLF accuses the central government of abusing its powers on oppressing Tigray.
And that's it on the program today. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Layo Olarinde.